Hi, this is Alex from Who Shot First, a Star Wars Controversy podcast. Thanks for listening. It's a special episode being released today on a Sunday because we are celebrating with a lot of other amazing podcasts Star Wars Podcast Day. This is just a day where a lot of different Star Wars podcasts are all getting together and shouting each other out so that we can celebrate the Star Wars community and podcasting in general. So, if you want to go on Twitter, you can find the different podcasts involved in Star Wars Podcast Day at Star Wars Pod Day. Happy Star Wars Podcast Day, everyone. Now enjoy the show.
Don't you turn against me.
I felt a great disturbance in the Force, as if millions of voices suddenly cried out in terror and were suddenly silenced.
You're not with me, then you're my enemy.
You thunder against me!
You have done that yourself.
Release your anger. Only your hatred can destroy me.
I hate you!
Bring balance to the force, not leave it in darkness. You are the chosen one.
Hello, and welcome to Who Shot First, a Star Wars Controversy podcast. I'm your host, Alex.
And I'm your other host, Ethan.
Today, we're welcome to the show one of the main co-hosts of Dork Wars, a new podcast that's coming out where they talk all about Star Wars. His name is Blake. Hello, Blake.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Going well. Welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you.
It's good to be on.
Excellent. So, first things first, we are going to ask you, because we ask all the people that come on the podcast, what is your first introduction and what got you into Star Wars?
So my first introduction to Star Wars was probably watching the original trilogy on VHS in the late 90s. My dad's always been a big fan. And since then, I've been a humongous fan. Of course, I grew up with the prequels when I was pretty young. Phantom Menace came out in 99, and at that point, I was 7 years old, I think, when that movie came out. So I got to grow up with the prequels It's really fun as a kid to watch the prequels because they had all that great choreography. They had the awesome lightsaber battles. So it was cool growing up with that. But it was also nice having that foundation of the original trilogy as well. So that was my first introduction to Star Wars, and probably all of the action, lightsabers, spaceships, all the cool futuristic sci-fi kind of stuff is what kept me hooked.
Awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about your podcast, Dork Wars?
So on Dork Wars, the podcast, we talk about all things Star Wars news, books coming out, The Mandalorian, the movies, just anything Star Wars that we can take apart, break down, and talk about, and even laugh about. We love to have a good laugh on Dork Wars, the podcast. So if you guys want to listen, that'd be great, and we'd love to have you guys as listeners, and just a good time.
Excellent. And we will be making a stop onto your podcast. So if you want to come join us, we will be popping over to them as well. But it is great to have you on today. And today we have you on for continuing our Clone Wars controversy arc. We get to talk about the Clone Wars introduction of the inhibitor chip. So quickly, the main controversy in the inhibitor chip is there are people who like it and people who don't. The inhibitor chip basically proves in Clone Wars that the clones did not have a choice executing Order 66. And because they had no choice, they are not at fault for killing all of the Jedi. There are some people who really like this because they grew to like all of the clones in Clone Wars, and then there are some others who don't like it because they feel it kind of doesn't work with the movie and then kind of weakens a little bit of the argument. So, before we get started, Ethan is going to be defending the inhibitor chip. He's going to like it, and I am going to be saying I don't like it.
This is where the fun begins.
I am pro inhibitor chip because it allows you to form these connections with the clones and better, and because if if you knew going in to watching the Clone Wars that these guys knew the whole time that ultimately either that the Jedi were evil or that they were eventually going to have to be taken out, then that really doesn't allow you to form those connections with the different clone characters that we see throughout the series. And with that inhibitor chip allowing them to basically not have any control over it, it adds that emotion to, wow, these guys, they formed all these great attachments, and there were genuine attachments to their Jedi generals and to their other fellow soldiers. And it adds that emotion of, well, now they're forced to betray all of them rather than that was the plan the whole time. Because if you don't have the inhibitor chip, it really paints the clones in a much darker sense. It doesn't.
Okay.
You have a hard time rooting for them.
Ooh. Okay. So we're going to dive right in because I will disagree on that, Mark. And
Okay.
my argument towards that is the Order 66 was never. It's not that they knew that the Jedi were bad. The Order 66 in the original canon of when it, not original canon, so it is, I think, Legends now. But
Yes.
when it was originally explained, it was a series of 150 just orders. And so there were 150 orders that clones just had to memorize. And all of them were contingency plans. So Order 66 was a contingency plan if the Jedi ever went bad. Because there are contingency plans all over the place. And to me, that makes more sense. And to me, that makes it more understanding of okay, yes, the Jedi, the clones knew that maybe someday there would be a possibility of it happening, but they didn't expect it to happen. So it's not that they were sitting there waiting okay, we're waiting for the Jedi. It's, all right, well, they have contingency plans if their troopers go crazy or that kind of thing. So for me, it was just a contingency plan, because I will say Order 66 sounds really cool, but doesn't make a ton of sense if it's just an activation code.
Right, but I think that has a hard time translating on the screen. If it was really a contingency plan, it's hard because during the movies, it just seems like they flip on a dime so fast. There's no emotion behind. Wow, we just got issued this Order 66 that we never thought we would. Nobody takes a step back and was like, holy crap, wow, are we going to actually have to do this? It's just boom, you got it.
Right. And I think too, you talk about it being a contingency plan, and I could believe that. That's something that's very believable to me. But like Ethan said, watch it in the movie. And I think this is something that they translated very well in season 7 of Clone Wars, where the clones just flip. There is, like you said, no emotion. There's no kind of step back. Hey guys, these are the Jedi. We've been fighting with them the whole time. Why should we shoot them? Why should we kill them? There's no questioning. And if there's no questioning, then you have to take their humanity out of it. If you're taking their humanity out of it, it's got to be the inhibitor chip. It kind of makes it seem that the clones are just tools, which they are. And the inhibitor chip makes them those tools.
I would agree that they are very much tools. Personally, I think that the inhibitor chip kind of retcons a little bit because, and this is, I know there are other people that say differently, but Lama Su in Attack of the Clones legitimately says,
"They are totally obedient, taking any order without question. We modified their genetic structure to make them less independent than the original host."
So to me, that's what sets it all up. And that's what I don't necessarily, yeah, they may question it, but that's the setup. Is they immediately know, all right, we've been given an order, we can question it. But to me, that was the setup of, all right, they are clones. They are not human. And that's what the Clone Wars tries to do. And this is where I will say, I think, as previous listeners of the podcast will know, I'm not the biggest fan of Clone Wars. I think it's really well done, just it's not for me. But I think the Clone Wars doesn't do the greatest job of portraying what the actual war was like, because these are generals. Like they say, every Jedi is a general. And I found through a website, who is it? Found on a military website, or a website of a guy who really likes, it's called Cine Inzigard Tumblr, and he's has a military background and talks about how if you're a private, which a lot of these clones are, like 90% of the clones are like low level. They're not going to interact
soldiers.
Right, they're basic soldiers. They're not going to interact with Jedi. Jedi are going to be interacting with the higher level clones, and they're not. So it's not that big of a jump because he said too, of like, if he's in the military and he gets a call down from like the president or somebody like really important and says Congress and you're in the military or whatever, and like sabotage, like Congress has tried to kill me and stuff like that, you go execute Order 66. You're not really going to question that. You're just going to go, okay, like I may like them a lot, but that is no longer okay. And so that's where my argument of like, yes. And that's so with Clone Wars, it does humanize the clones. And I like that piece of it. But then it gives you the impression that like all the clones know all of the Jedi and they get super close to them. And I'm like, that's not really the case, I don't think, in the whole Republic Army. Now, is it the case with like Anakin and Obi-Wan and Ahsoka? Absolutely, because Ahsoka and Anakin actively go out of their way to try to get to know their clones and see them as humans. But I think personally, like 90% of those Jedi are like Jedi Corel. It's just like they're a tool. Go die.
Well, okay, and I was just going to bring up that arc of when you were talking about, taking any order without question. That whole arc kind of shows about how they deviate from direct orders like that a little bit when they're given by that general. So I think to say it would just take any order without question, especially at the end of the war, they've had 3 long years of building these relationships with these Jedi. And, I think, yes, I'd agree that it's, obviously these Jedi generals aren't going to have relationships with every single clone trooper in their company, but I think being around those generals and fighting alongside them, whether they have direct contact, verbally or not, you're gonna form these attachments to them as these maybe not savior, but these leaders that you look up to. And so I think it would just be the idea that they could just flip on or commit those orders without showing any sort of remorse or regret.
Well, it really does.
Like 5 of them.
What?
No, go ahead, Blake.
Oh, well, I was just going to say that it seems that the clones look up to the Jedi as heroes, as like those heroic generals that come in and take care of the problem, the big bad problem. The Jedi are the answer to that. And I will say, Alex, that was a really good argument. It's pretty airtight. My only way to, and it's going to be kind of a no prize, if you will. The Kaminoans are sketchy. I mean,
I do not like them. I will say that. No, I absolutely, yeah.
They are so sketchy, and they're working close with Emperor Palpatine and Count Dooku. We know
that's actually an argument I'm going to bring up later because that, yeah. But anyway, continue. Yep.
So they're working very close with the Emperor and Count Dooku. So who's to say that the Kaminoans do not know that when the Jedi come to call, we just have to tell them as much as they need to know. We need to tell them that they're genetically modified. Do not tell the Jedi about the inhibitor chip. Could Emperor Palpatine have told the Kaminoans, do not tell them about the inhibitor chip? If you tell them about that, they might be able to find out what we're plotting.
I would agree that is. I think that's what happened, and that's like deliberately what happened in the inhibitor chip arc, where we hear that. My issue with that is, why are the Kaminoans talking with Tyrannus? Why are they talking with Dooku? Why? That makes
it's the money, dude. It's the money.
But money, they've been paid already.
Well, who's to say they're not continuing to get paid? I don't. What's the actual? I don't know this. I actually don't know this. What is the what's the payment arrangement between the Emperor and the Kaminoans?
Right,
Nobody knows.
They talk about having 1 million more clones on the way. So you think that there'd have to be a
continuing contract.
That would be with the Republic, though, not through Count Dooku.
Well, it could be the bank. I mean, you could have the banking clan, or funding the other side. But I guess I don't.
Well, the front for the clones is Master Sifo Dyas, right? And
yeah.
They actually said that the Jedi ordered this army. They didn't even say that the Republic ordered this army. It says the Jedi ordered this army for the Grand Army of the Republic. I think that's stated in episode 2. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes,
it is.
Yep.
So the Jedi ordered this army, but the Jedi have no idea. It seems, and I'm a little fuzzy on the Clone Wars arc that pertains to Master Sifo Dyas, because there was one. It's been a long time since I've seen it. It's maybe answering that. I don't know.
It's not very good, I will say.
Yeah,
that arc. It does not explain, and by not good, I mean it doesn't explain.
No, it does not. I agree with you on that, and that's probably why it stays so fuzzy in my mind. But that since the Jedi ordered this army, the Jedi should be paying up, right? And the Jedi have no idea. The Jedi don't have much think. We can see that in episode 1 when Qui-Gon Jinn
have a baller ass castle though.
They do have that, but I don't.
And if they can't pay,
all right. So I would agree on those points. My question for you guys is, with Lama Su and all that wonderfulness, to me, if you had back again, it's more of the military, because to me it's a lot of the connection with the clones of, like, I would say yes, back to our original thing. Your statement of saying that you think the clones look up to the Jedi, and I would probably say that the Clone Wars portrays this, but, and again, this might be my own prejudice coming in from like previous like legends, because I was a big fan of the Karen Travis Republic Commando books, and those are absolutely not canon anymore. So
yeah, but very good, very, very good books.
Yes. So I like those, and so to me, like, again, as you were saying, like, it's been 3 years, like this war just keeps going on, and when you say that, like, there's a general, like, these prophets aren't going to know they're Jedi, and so if they keep going to these different locations, like, for instance, again, I'm going to bring up Krell. Like, if you have a Jedi, a clone, because he wasn't fighting alongside the clones, he would send them off and to die and do their thing, and then he would stand back. And so
yes,
that's it. I will say another thing, like, that's an issue I have with that arc, is that, like, it eliminates what Lama Su says of, like, they will follow orders without question. Now, to me, if you put the inhibitor chip in, to me that the clones are sympathetic either way, because to me the clones are sympathetic in that with the inhibitor chip they're getting mind control, but if they don't have the inhibitor chip, they're still just a tool. It's still a tragic situation, because yes, they know that they might have to do this eventually, but they are following their orders. They are not human. Because again, a failing, I think, of the Clone Wars is it humanizes them too much. Because to me, if you want something that can just do whatever, why are we using clones? Why are we not using droids? If you just want things that can answer, like, what's the point of the clone army if they're not genetically modified to follow orders and to do these things? Because I will say the Clone Wars does it really well of humanizing them, but also makes them like individual, and that's not what clones are for. Clones are for to be the same and to always follow the line. So that's just my small argument there.
Well, that's a good argument. That really seals it. The clones are cloned to be the same, to make the same decisions, to be obedient, and I do believe that. But I do believe they say they genetically modified them to be less like the host. But does that mean
Right.
totally not like the host anymore? Because Jango Fett is a pretty, how do I say this? Pretty
Independent.
cannon. Yeah, independent. He's a loose cannon, man. Jango's gonna do what Jango wants to do. And if you don't like it, you know, it doesn't matter. He's gonna do it anyway. So maybe just a little bit of that Jango Fett comes through, even with the genetic modifications. You know, maybe you can take a little bit of the Jango Fett out of the clones, but not completely.
Right. And, and especially since he's a canon, a Mandalorian foundling. So, maybe you have that bit of that, Mandalorian, not true blood, I guess, but that's instincts maybe, since you were brought up that way. Who knows? Yeah, I can see the argument that you were making, Alex.
Mhm.
But
And I think this is why this is such a really good issue.
definitely.
Yeah, because I mean, and that's another thing I have. Like a lot of my things are like militarily, and again, go back to the Karen Travis books, because like with Karen Travis books, they show how like beaten down and like unhappy the clones are in the war, and we don't really ever see that in Clone Wars, like except for maybe the Krell arc. But it's that the clones are like, we just keep going and keep going and keep going, and there's nothing else except in I think it's the season 7, which again, I don't personally, I struggle keeping that in like the official Clone Wars arc because it was so separate, but like it's still good. It's I think the best season. But
you could also
with that, go ahead.
I was just going to mention too that with that brief arc, the Deserter talks a little bit about how he's
right, and they talk about that. But like my thing is, like the Jedi have been pictured, and the way the war has been aimed is that the Jedi are in charge of the war. And to me, that's where this works better. It works better with the Jedi are forcing all these clones to keep battling and keep going into these fights. And so it makes sense when like these basically slaves, the slave army, because they are clones and they are human and they are sentient, like they have no other choice. They cannot go do anything. So this slave army, to me, it shows the deterioration of the moral high ground of the Jedi. Because the Jedi are while I like the idea that like the clones look up to the Jedi, I also don't like that at all, because the Jedi are treated, the Jedi Council and the Jedi Order is treated very poorly in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, of just like they seem like idiots. So, because they're constantly making not smart decisions, and so that's just my, and so it's just like it to me it works of like they are idiots. They keep getting outplayed by Sidious, and so Sidious is positioning them of they are going to take all of the blame. Like this whole war, it's all been about them. It's all been about this power grab. And so to me, like the 99% of clones, like they could look at that and go, oh, yeah, like that makes total sense. So yeah, you'll have some clones like question it. And even in the EU or the Legends, like there were clones who were just like, nope, we've been fighting with this general for so long, we're not going to execute the order. And then they were like, they either reported them dead or were like they left and they left the army or whatever. But to me, it's like it would be a small contingency of those clones versus the 99% or whatever that are just like, yeah, those are generals that have been making us fight for forever and not letting, like, we don't get days off, we don't get breaks, and when we get too old, we go home and we die. Like this is all we are.
Yeah. And that's a good point. But my question or my rebuttal to that would be, if you can make them less or more likely to follow orders and you make them programmed to follow orders, can't you program them to be obedient to the Jedi and not get discouraged? Is that modifiable? The morale of the army is that something you can modify? I don't know.
I don't either. That is a good argument though.
Yeah, because if you can change their decision making through genetics, why not be able to change their, I guess, morale?
Right.
You know,
And their stamina too, perhaps.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is canon, but they did genetically alter their aging process.
I think that is canon because they age
Well,
twice as fast. That's mentioned in.
Yeah. Okay. So that is officially
Yeah.
canon. Yeah. They don't. Yeah. Okay.
yeah. Because otherwise, a mature clone would take a lifetime.
Yeah.
right.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. I've laid my case. I think I'm good on my case. Any other final thoughts? Anything else you want to bring up, Ethan or Blake?
I definitely agree with I agree with some of the points you made, and they're definitely interesting points. But I still say that having the inhibitor chip better enhances the overall story and experience of the Clone Wars and Episode 3 as well.
Okay.
Man, I'm still more on the inhibitor chip side, but I can definitely see the argument, and
Yeah.
I can definitely see the argument, and I can see how it could be both ways. Unfortunately, now we have canon to tell us what to think. But yeah, I think the inhibitor chip argument slightly outweighs the non-inhibitor chip argument.
All right. But one thing we do know is that while we technically have canon, it actually doesn't matter because Disney cannot follow canon on its own. So
That's right. That's right.
So it's
Honestly,
really
right.
whatever you want to believe. So
Believe whatever. Exactly. At the end of the day, who cares? Don't let anybody tell you. Don't let anybody tell you what really happened and what didn't.
No, just have a spirited debate with your friends.
Yeah.
Just talk about Star Wars. That's the best part.
Well, that's exactly. And like you said, those non-canon books are still really awesome books. And
oh gosh,
really
I still read
great
Legends.
pieces of
I
Star
still
Wars.
read Legends.
Totally.
Oh yeah,
exactly.
I've got a whole bookcase full of them, and I'm still looking for them. Yeah, absolutely.
I think don't the new issues actually have Legends printed on them now?
They are not doing new issues, but yes.
No, but I mean, like when they're doing reprints, they've issued reprints of some of
the most
Zahn's
popular
books.
ones. Yes.
Yeah.
They'll say Legends on them. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So, where can we find you, Blake, and your podcast?
You can find us on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Amazon. We're working on Pandora and iHeartRadio right now. We may be there already. I don't think we are, but we might be trying to get there. But yeah, you can find us all those places. And that is Dork Wars, the podcast. We're also on Facebook and Twitter, and we have a Discord channel as well.
Excellent.
Awesome.
And you can find us at WhoShot1SWPod on Twitter. Thanks for coming on, Blake. And you can take us off.
Never tell me the odds.
Never tell me the odds.
People are counting on us. The galaxy is counting on us. Solo, we'll figure it out. We'll use the Force. That's not how the Force works. Oh, really? You're cold?
In ordering Order 66.
Executing.